Welcome to Inside the Speaker Studio. I'm Rich Gibbons, and today we're joined by Travelocity founder, venture capitalist, author, and keynote speaker, Terry Jones. Terry, welcome.
Great to be here.
Assuming that everybody out there in the intertubes, they all know Travelocity, but they probably don't know your journey, how you came to Travelocity.
I became a travel agent out of college. Did my first startup at 21. Started my own travel company with another guy. Built that up for 5 years, turned it into a big travel company, then jumped into technology. Went to work for a company that sold tech to travel agents. That company was purchased by American Airlines. So then I had an 18-year career climbing the ladder at American from VP to Chief Information Officer. When I was CIO, there was a little department working for me that had just put travel on the internet. And I got tired of being CIO, and I said, I want to go do that. And turned it into Travelocity, took it public for $1.2 billion. That was a great 7-year ride. And then eventually they wanted it back. So I said, okay, and I left the company, got into venture capital, and we started Kayak.com. 4 of us started Kayak. I was chairman there for 8 years. We sold that to Priceline after taking it public for $1.8 billion. So that was a great ride. Since then, I've been on 14 public and private boards. Just had an AI company for the last 4 years, and I've been a speaker for 15 years now.
You've had a real catbird seat on seeing how different technologies and pioneering approaches to industries have really changed them.
Oh yeah, from being on the board of Overture, which is the company that invented paid search, to starting a search company like Kayak, to being an early web pioneer. Yeah, I've really been involved in leading edge technologies for my whole career.
Terry and I worked together recently with a large trade association customer, and one of the elements that you presented there was a lot of different technologies that are disrupting and creating this market innovation, but one of them was self-driving cars. And we were talking recently about how most people, most lay people like myself, get the primary effect of those self-driving cars. I'm not going to be driving the car. But what I found fascinating was how you rolled out what's the secondary and tertiary effect of that. And some of the ones that you were talking about were hotels. You're not going to pull off the freeway.
You don't need to.
Because you just sleep in the back of the car.
Sleep in the car. What about insurance? These are mostly electric cars. They're cheaper to insure.
Right.
What about accidents? They're inherently safer. What about parking lots? You're not going to park it. You're going to tell it to go home. Right. Come back and pick me up later.
Right.
What about traffic cops? Who are they going to arrest?
Billboards.
In the car. Billboards.
Yeah.
There are probably 15 or 20 industries that will be affected. Even hospitals. The principal reason for emergency room visits is car wrecks. They're going to go down.
Right.
So,
which is a good thing.
It's a good thing,
but it's going to change the world.
But it's going to change the industry.
Right.
So it's not just about looking at who's going to make a self-driving car, and I'm a car guy. It's am I at all?
Which is the obvious effect. That's
right.
the one that everybody gravitates to.
But, I insure cars, or people who drive come to my hotel.
Right.
I mean, you really have to be scanning the world to look at what are the effects of all these changes, particularly with this new networked world, and how might it impact my business?
And when you look at something like self-driving cars, that it seems almost trivial compared to something like 3D printing. 3D printing is going to touch every facet of our lives.
Oh, yeah, it's the replicator, right?
Yeah.
And, to think about the fact that it could totally change the part that I buy from China. Now I don't need the assembly, the warehouse, the boat, all that stuff. I can just build it right next to my plant.
Right.
I can either build it in my plant or I can outsource it to a guy right next to my plant.
Yeah.
And there are all kinds of technologies like that are changing things, principally because the digital aspect of them. I mean, you and I were talking about the fact you like your Nest thermostat because you have an app where you can control it.
Right.
That's more important. It's not a thermostat anymore. It's a remote device that's controlling multiple things in your home.
Exactly.
And it's the app impact of that, the digitization
Yep.
that we all have to think about. And it's hard to change from being an iron company to being an outcome company, but that's important to think about.
Another customer of mine is a manufacturer of, as Terry calls it, iron. So they manufacture physical products that have the capability of being networked into broader systems, building systems. And you touched on that when we were on the phone with them not too long ago about companies that are expert in code writing and integration inserting themselves into that industry and sort of getting a piece of the action.
Right, because in the old way in a factory, when something went down, the red light went on.
Right.
But now you want that thing to not only say the red light is on, but the compressor went down in section 3, I turned on the backup compressor, and I dispatched the serviceman who will be here in an hour. Right. That takes a whole lot of software and integration. Yeah. So companies who are selling iron want to step up to do that integration so they aren't at the bottom of the food chain and get specced out by Google or Microsoft or Oracle or someone else who wants to get in there, who is fighting to get in there. So a reverse example of thinking about it, I spoke recently to the Hartford Steam Boiler Insurance Company. It's been around 150 years. They inspect boilers and plants, every plant has boilers, to make sure they don't blow up. Now, sometimes they do blow up and they have to pay, but mostly they try to get them not to blow up. I said, what are you doing now? Cyber insurance and the Internet of Things. They looked at those businesses, which don't seem like the same business, and they said, well, Internet of Things are a bunch of controllers. They're in factories. They're going to break. Right. They need to be inspected, and we're going to insure them if they don't. And cyber insurance is the same thing. Sure. So that company is going to be 200 years old because they understand what their core business is, but they're rapidly adopting it to the digital world.
The new landscape, right. Yeah. Another thing that we were talking about earlier is the old adage, I don't go to Home Depot to buy a drill because I want to drill, I want a hole. Right. And you were talking about telemetry on board these turbines that tell the engineers and the operators exactly what's going on.
And when they're going to fail. So GE is now selling thrust, right, instead of an engine. So I don't have to lease it. I pay so much an hour for that much thrust. I want 98% uptime. And I want this much thrust, and that's all you have to buy. And GE can guarantee that because they know when it's going to break. Yeah. So they know when to take it out of service. They know how to work through that, and that's all done with data. I remember the first time when I was running the American Airlines system, we had a guy come to our data center and say, I'm here to fix a disk drive. We said, we didn't call you. He said, no, it did.
Yeah, right.
And we went, what? Right. And this was like 20 years ago. Sure. Well, now the level of that is so much higher because we can understand these systems so much better.
And the system probably ordered its own replacement part.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
Exactly, it did. I was just in Heathrow Airport where they're now applying robotics to bag sorting. So these big robots that are doing that work. You can go to Moscow and your bag can go to Nairobi much faster. They can still screw it up. But all this is because of this digital revolution, which means that every company is becoming digital. And that's very hard to do. It's hard to think about. I worked with this large company we worked with on 3 gigs, I think, talking to their salespeople because it's harder to sell an outcome than it is to sell a widget. Sure.
Well, it's a different mindset.
It's a wholly different mindset. And they want to change, but you can't change overnight. It's hard to do.
There was a phrase that you used earlier, the difference between innovation and disruption.
Yeah. I mean, look, I say that disruption and innovation are 2 sides of the same coin. You only call it a disruption because you didn't do it. Right. If you did it, it would be an innovation. Right. But it was done to you. You say, oh, that's a disruption. It's a terrible thing. So, because, oops, I didn't think of it.
Yeah. So the goal is for you to do it, not have somebody else do it to you.
Don't have it done to you. And that means you have to take risk and you're going to fail. And that's hard for companies. Right. They're used to not failing. Well, whoever founded their company was a risk taker. Right. It was a risk to start their company. That's true. But now they're big and staid and they have to make their quarterly earnings. They don't want to make a mistake. You have to. Edison said, I just learned 1,000 things not to do when he was trying to invent the light. I never failed. Right. And you're going to fail. Yeah. But now the cool thing is I can fail small. I can use a 3D printer. I can do it on the web. I don't have to spend millions of dollars.
You don't have all that upfront.
Right. And there are a lot of ways to test ideas in a small failure. But what's so important is kill projects, not people. Because once you start saying, hey, the project failed, but Bob, you're okay, and you're getting another job, then people say, oh, it's okay. Yeah. I'll sign on to one of those because I'm not getting fired. Right. But until that happens, nobody's going to jump. Yeah.
Well, it's a brave new world, and thank you for all your insights on innovation and disruption, et cetera.
Well, it's great to be with you.
Yeah. This has been Inside the Speaker Studio. I'm Rich Gibbons with Terry Jones. Thanks for watching.